Merry Yuletide and happy everything, my dear friends. 'Tis the season for festive gatherings, cozy nights spent indoors, warm drinks, gifts, and sharing ghost stories around the hearth. Yep, you heard me. During the Victorian era, Christmas was a time for families and close acquaintances to gather around the hearth and tell stories. Ghost stories were popular and very fitting for the scenario, as they provided an exciting and dangerous contrast to the warmth and safety that they would have felt in their homes. There's something about colder weather that just makes us humans extra appreciative of our cozy dwellings. Charles Dickens was the real OG in making Christmas ghost stories a staple in Victorian homes, thanks to his classic A Christmas Carol. If you're from my generation, you know the story quite well, thanks to the Muppets version. Undeniably the best retelling of the tale. If you are part of my family and watching this video, you'll also know it from the year my cousins and I put on a 3-woman show with me starring as Ebenezer Scrooge. This spectral tale perfectly blended the supernatural with the spirit of the holiday season, cementing the correlation between Christmas and ghost stories. The tradition of telling ghostly tales around the fire at Christmas time saw a decline in the 20th century thanks to our old friend capitalism and the commercialization of the holiday. But luckily, there has been a bit of a resurgence in recent years with modern interpretations of horror and festive tropes in literature, television, and theater. So in honor of this Victorian tradition and my 10-year-old self, I figured we could spend this pre-Christmas time sharing a ghost story from the ancient Greco-Roman world. And if you like it, hey, it might even become a tradition of our own. So grab a tea, a blanket, a hot water bottle, whatever makes you feel cozy, and let's get spooked. Our ghost story tonight comes from Roman writer and politician Pliny the Younger, who lived during the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. In one of his letters, Book 7, Letter 27 to Licinius Sura to be exact, he asks his friend if he believes in ghosts. Pliny proceeds to tell a few ghost stories that had such an effect on Pliny that he claimed that they inclined him to give credit to their existence. Quote unquote. It's the second ghost story that he tells in this letter about a haunted house in Athens that we will be focusing our ghostly attention on this evening. Pliny himself said it had circumstances of great horror, and so it begins. There was a large and spacious house in Athens that all avoided, as everyone believed it to be haunted. In the dead of night, a noise resembling the clashing of iron was frequently heard by passers-by. If you listened closer, you could make out the rattling of chains. At first, the sound would feel far away, but the longer you listened, the closer it came. Suddenly, a phantom would appear in the form of an old, emaciated, disgusting-looking man with a long beard and bristly hair. When he moved, the chains shackling his hands and feet would let out a blood-curdling rattle. The poor residents of the house could not sleep with these terrifying sounds and the night terrors that tore them from their slumber. Unable to rest, the inhabitants of the house became riddled with episodes of psychosis, the horrors of their minds slowly taking over until it proved fatal. For even in the daytime, though the specter did not appear, his memory held their imaginations captive, and he would still appear before their eyes in fatigued visions. With the death of its inhabitants, the house became deserted, judged by all to be uninhabitable. The ghost was free to lay claim to the property and continued to roam freely on the premises. But in hopes of finding someone who was ignorant to the stories of this house, the owner put it up for sale at a price much lower than it was worth, in hopes that it would be let or purchased by another naive soul. As it happened, the philosopher Athenodorus came to Athens looking for accommodation. After seeing the listing, he was at first suspicious of such a low price for the house. But after hearing tales of what lay beyond its doors, he only became more intrigued by the house, and he immediately rented it. Upon his first night, he ordered a couch to be prepared for him in the front part of the house, along with an oil lamp, a pen, and writing tablets. Directing all of his people to retire, he then busied his mind with his writings so as not to become paranoid and imagine any noises or apparitions. The first part of the night passed like any other, in silence. Then the clanking of iron chains began. Athenodorus chose to ignore it, not once lifting his eyes in the direction of the sound, nor laying down his pen. He ignored the approaching rattling as it drew closer. First down the hallway, then outside the door. Athenodorus held strong when finally the chains were dragged into the chamber, drawing up beside him. He looked up and saw the phantom before him exactly as described. The ghost only stood before him, beckoning Athenodorus with a finger. Not yet done with his thoughts, Athenodorus gestured to the ghost to wait a bit and returned to his notes. The ghost rattled his chains overhead in impatience, once more catching Athenodorus' attention and beckoning as before. Sensing the urgency, Athenodorus immediately rose, grabbed his lamp, and followed the ghost as it stalked slowly through the house, encumbered with its chains. Once the ghost turned into the courtyard, he vanished, deserting Athenodorus where he stood. Athenodorus marked the spot with a handful of grass and leaves and went to bed. The next morning, he went to the local authorities and asked for the spot where the ghost vanished to be dug up. To everyone's surprise, perhaps minus Athenodorus's, they found the buried bones of a man commingled and intertwined with chains, no doubt tortured before his death. The remains of this unfortunate soul were collected and given a dignified burial at public expense, and the house was never haunted again. The end. So there you have it, folks. If you ever hear anything go bump in the night, it might just be a lost soul looking for the rest that we all crave after death. Happy holiday hauntings to all, and to all, a ghost-free night. Stay dirty, my friends.